Welcome to Project Cars 2. That's what we're on. We're just starting on this game as one of the first to talk about. In this video, we're going to be talking about GT Sport versus Forza Motorsport 7 versus Project Cars 2. When it comes to track racing, this year has been the year if you want to get yourself a track racer. Whether you're a PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, you've had a couple of options of games to pick from. I'm going to help you with that decision if you're looking to decide which one to get. But before we do, I need to mention the Knobheads Discord. You might remember a couple of videos back, well, quite a few videos back, I mentioned that the Discord server is now public. So if you guys want to join and have a chat with me, the other Knobheads, and all the like 2,000 people that are in our server, or if you don't like us and you for some reason watching this, I don't know what, if you don't like us, you can make your own Discord. Also, you're not just sat there on your own. You should probably invite some of your friends as well, and you can do that as well. Have your own little How about you make Knobheads too? Well, thanks so much to Discord for being a sponsor. First off, let's jump into Project Cars 2. We're going to be talking about things in relation to how I feel about them. I just wanted to go into these games a little bit because I've played them quite a little bit now on all three of them. I gave them all an equal go, I would say, to give my thoughts on all three of them and which one you should get if depending on what type of gamer you are. So let's start off with the feel of the game. The handling is probably one of the most important parts of the game, and Project Cars 1 disappointed me massively when it came to controller. Now, before you try and disagree with me, yes, the handling was decent on a wheel. The controller support needs to be there. If the game does not work on controllers and it comes to consoles, what is the point? The majority of people, 99% of people, will be using a controller. So, Project Cars 2, on the other hand, has improved and works with a controller pretty damn well. Is it as good as, say, Gran Turismo or Forza when it comes to the handling with a normal input device? I'm gonna say no. I feel as if it's still a little bit weird and funky to use. I mean, it's definitely doable. Compared to the last game, you don't have to tweak your setting. Again, the last game was doable, but this game, definitely doable without having to mess around with settings and stuff, and that's how console games should be. The handling is massively being improved, and I'm glad, because that was the main thing that put me off the last game. It was not a console title. A console title should just be like a console is, where you put the disc in and it works. This now, however, handling-wise, has been improved, although I do think it's the least best when it comes to these three that I'm mentioning today. When it comes to playing with, it's definitely a bajillion times better than the previous. Anyway, what's next on it? You're like, what's next on it? What else can he say? Progression. This game pretty much pioneered this idea in the recent generation anyway, as far as I know, on having, you can choose where you want to start and what type of cars you want to start. So you could start in pretty much the very best if you really wanted to. I mean, not the very best, but pretty close to. It lets you jump from either, as I said, beginning or pretty much towards the end. It has progression, but it's not a proper progression, like progression should be. If you've played the previous game, it is not worth playing the progression in the new game. It is pretty much identical. What I do like is they have kind of people guiding you through it. It has much more to it than some of the other games, but it's still very, very weak. And I think across the board of these three games, progression overall is ridiculously weak compared to what it was. If you look at, say, similar games from last generation, it seems like we're going backwards. As for the cars, we go through and you get something in your head instantly. And it was an issue I had with the last game, and I still feel that it's an issue in this game. The last game had a decent amount of cars. I didn't really care too much about how many cars there were. What I did care about was how little road cars there are. I personally prefer road cars and building up to these ridiculous cars. But there's so many of these ridiculous race cars and F1 style cars in this game that it makes you go, well, how do I build up to this? Go-karts and then jumping into these? It seems like there's only a very small handful of road cars. Road A, decent amount. Not too many, not over the top. Road B, it goes through. There's a lot more than there were in the previous game, but still, I don't think there's hardly enough road cars, and that's what most people have, and they would want to use in a game like this, personally. That's how I believe anyway. And obviously, yes, there is a very hardcore sim racing crowd that definitely want to use the race cars, but to completely ignore the fact that a lot of people would like to use road cars is a little bit silly. Online for Project Cars, let's not talk about online for Project Cars. Forza or Forza if you want to be a bloody nut. Definitely the most accessible game of the bunch. I would say this game is more arcadey than both the other two. And let's say, I would say Project Cars 2 is the more serious of all of them. But that's a matter of what you want to look for. This game, as I said, is easy to pick up. And it does have a mastery level if you really want to get into it, but overall, I don't think it can get to the level of difficulty of the other two games. Though, you can jump on and have fun straight away with this game. It has a lot of assists in place when you first jump into the game that are definitely made to be like hand-holding massively. I mean, the other games have them as well. I think GT more so has like the auto braking and that sort of stuff, but Forza has the most assists you could ever bloody think of. Almost to the point where you can pretty much just accelerate and the game will turn stuff for you. That's a thing. Anyway, let's get to the point of it. The handling model is, as I said, very nice to play. I do feel most of the cars handle pretty much the same. That's the one huge difference in this game, is that the cars don't vary as much as they do in other games, other than the fact that when a car is all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, that's when you notice the main difference between them. And obviously, as you add more power, they feel a little bit different, but if you had two cars similar setup-wise, like, you know, they were both all-wheel drive, they both had a set amount of power, they would feel very, 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 very similar. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but again, when it comes to this game, I reckon you can have more fun on this than you could with Project Cars. Although it's probably not true, it feels like less simulation is going on in this game compared to the other two. Again though, it does feel as if you can pick up this game and play it even if you don't know how a car should actually feel. I haven't played much of the game with a wheel, so I can't say too much on that. But if you go to All Assist Software, you want to go proper hardcore, this is the hardest game to do it because all the cars feel like they're on ice still. The handling's just a little bit off, but for having fun, they've done a pretty good job. And onto progression. Now, if you see my Forza video about this, it's pretty similar to how it is on Project Cars, in where you choose where you want to start. Now, you can actually choose which I did. I chose like the lower end cars, which was, I can't even find it now. The hatches is the first option. Chose the hot hatches and it stuck me in those cars, and I was happy with it. But then I watched other people's videos and I played it again at an event where I could start a new game and you can jump straight into Rise of the Supercar. So again, it's like Project Cars and you can jump in where you want to go. So I'm going to say that this is better than Project Cars' progression because you can't jump into stupid race cars from the beginning, which is great. But I still prefer Gran Turismo's because it's a little bit different. It's actually different and it's not making me... I have the option to jump into the best car in the game right at the beginning of the game. Now, car list is where Forza has it. Forza has the most cars I've ever seen in a racing game, other than Gran Turismo of the old, but they're actually the most high quality models of the cars. Now, are they as high quality as maybe Gran Turismo because they've been completely redone? Probably not. But let's be honest, at this point, for me, it doesn't bother me too much. I like the amount of cars in this game, but at the same time, I do feel as if there's so many cars, like I'd say about 600 of these cars I will never even look at. I will never even use, and that's not an issue because everyone likes different cars. And the one thing that's a bit weird about it though is this is a whole car collection menu. I don't know many people that go into a racing game to collect all the cars when it's like 700. I don't feel that's what you do in a game. You pick your favorites and that's pretty much all you use. Well, let me be clear, the amount of cars in this game is ridiculous. If you want a car, this game probably has it and the others probably don't. Other than bloody Toyota. And we jump into the multiplayer and I feel again as if it is almost the same as Project Cars in where it has the basic lobby system, but it has a little bit more menu options and stuff. You could probably set up a more specific race in Project Cars. This game has more console-esque menus in where you choose something, you jump in and you start playing. Though, I think the communities are completely different from each other. If you go into Forza, you're probably going to get smashed into. If you go online on Project Cars, you probably may get some serious racers. In GT Sport, it just pioneers in the multiplayer because of the fact that it's just the idea of GT Sport is multiplayer, and they've done it pretty damn well. I just wish it had the open lobbies, which this game also doesn't have. That Project Cars actually kinda has, but not to the extent that GT5 and 6 had them. Which someone just match that, please. And finally, GT Sport. And I'm gonna go out and say it that GT Sport is my favorite of the three straight away. Though, is it the one for you? That's a different matter. Now, this game, it's a hit and miss. It's a little bit disappointing in some areas, and at the same time, it massively overwent my expectations in some areas. But first things, I need to claim some reward. Also gonna buy a GTR, because why the heck not, right? Let's get it on. Here we go. Now, can I just say straight away that having music on your racing game while the player's playing, it makes it feel a million times better. I don't know what it is, but I like the music on the. I know you can do it on the other games. Anyway, it definitely feels like Gran Turismo, a polished Japanese game. It feels pretty damn polished. I mean, Forza honestly, I think has the overall polish on its hands. I say that, but at the same time, obviously, Gran Turismo has that feel where it's just prestigiously Japanese. Like every other Gran Turismo I've ever played, it feels incredible with a controller. That's not to say it's better, like, overall. But to me, this is the most enjoyable handling model of the three. It just feels as you would expect. Everything goes as you would imagine, and you can still mess up badly. I've got all the assists on the games the side I've been playing, but one thing with Project Cars is once you turn the assists off with a controller, it becomes near impossible again, as it was in the previous game, to play the game normally without tweaking settings. This game, however, once you turn off the assists with the controller, it still works really well. But then we get to the progression, which it's quite interesting. I haven't been through all of it yet, but it's not a review. It's me talking about which I prefer and why. Going through the progression of this game, it's not that good. Previous Gran Turismos were much better when it came to progression. Buying cars and that sort of stuff was there, and that's what I want. I want the used marketplace, and I want the building of tracks like you could in GT6 and the open lobbies of GT6. So many things missing in here that were in previous GT games, but you can look at any game and any of the three and say the same thing. Project Cars promised to have this dual player co-op campaign where one would be the co-driver. It's not there. Forza has removed more features than any developer like ever has in any game, but going through this, there is not an actual proper progression. What you do is, I mean, there is, it gets more difficult as you go along as such, but there's no buying of cars because you need to use the cars in arcade mode. You never use your own cars in these things. You just get given the car that they recommend, and it's just the bits of a track and how to drive properly, which is all well and good if that was the introduction and then it took me to races, which it doesn't. So this is a pretty weak Gran Turismo progression, but personally my favorite to play. I know it sounds weird, but actually playing through this game is much enjoyable because, again, compared to the other two, it's a little bit different. Forza does the same thing every year, and Project Cars did the same thing last year. This is a little bit different. Another area GT is doing worse than its previous game is the car list. At least the count of the cars. The cars overall have been redone. They look incredible in this game, and they always do in a Gran Turismo game, but this is to a next level. They have decided to scrap all of the PS2 cars with no interior views and fully make them again for this generation. These are the only cars that have been built properly for this generation. As in, like, this whole game has been made from scrap for this gen, and you know that the next consoles are going to be not much of a bump in hardware. So these cars, the amount of detail in them, it's not going to be the same as Forza, because Forza is still using its showroom cars from Motorsport 4. But these are easily the most detailed cars I have seen in a game. There's just something great about them. I can't wait to see them properly in 4K because I haven't yet done that. But let's not get away from the fact there aren't many of them. There are definitely not many cars, but there are a decent amount of road cars, which tickles my fancy. A lot of people want to buy their car in the game, and for once, my car's in this game. You can buy the Lexus RCF and you can put stupid colors on it, which is great. As for the online, we've already played it on the channel in the betas and the demos and whatever. The multiplayer is a brand new idea of having online proper racing that you progress up. And this is the main idea of GT Sport, is you start from the bottom and you build your way up online. That's how you build up your name for yourself and possibly become a real racing driver. It's just an insane idea, and it's the main push of GT Sport, and I'm so thankful that is the main push, the online. We're finally in the next generation like they promised. But that's my thoughts on it. I personally am playing more GT Sport, but what's the better game? Let's be honest, Forza has more content, but that doesn't make it the best game of them. And I'm going to come out and say, obviously, the best way to do it, in my opinion, is if you have a PS4, you buy GT Sport. If you have an Xbox, then you buy Forza. And if you're on PC, then you have a choice of Forza, or you have a choice of Project Cars 2. Forza's more fun, and you can do a lot more in Forza, but I think personally that Project Cars eventually, in the next few years, if they keep releasing them in the way they do, they might actually be better than Forza very soon, in my opinion, in the fun value. But you could disagree with me. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to hear. Be sure to smash like, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So next time, peace.